Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I have Sheikh Uthman Ibn Farooq. You all have seen him, mashallah. There's no need for an introduction. But you haven't heard him speaking about entrepreneurship, finance, and business. So I have one question which is very important personally to me because it's part of our religion, part of our ibadah and farais, which is Zakat. Sheikh Saib, Assalamu alaykum.
Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. Pleasure being here with you again, rahmatullah.
I have a question, Sheikh, concerning Zakat. You know, in business, you have, one is the business revenue you have.
Right.
Second is the business asset.
Right.
Third is business evaluation, like a business value. So there are three different things. On what we are paying Zakat?
It's a great question. So first thing, there are those things that are involved in the business for revenue generating. For example, you have a transport business and you have the truck that's actually used for transportation and so on. Majority of the scholars said there's no zakat on that, right? Okay. But then you may have assets. For example, you have 100,000 cars in your lot. And if those are not flipped, then usually between that there is zakat. And the ulama give tashbih to, for example, camels and horses and so on, and the value is calculated out. If you have cash on hand that has been sitting on hand, then that is zakatul mal. You calculate like you do with your wealth. But then there is a business evaluation that is basically looking at your impact, meaning it's not assets.
Yes.
It's, for example, Donald Trump. He has physical finances on hand, but then he claims that his name is an asset, right? Which you could put a number to. But it's an imaginary figure. So in Islam, we don't put zakat on something like that. So if your business is evaluated at a certain amount, you don't pay zakat on that because that's not cash on hand. But the revenue that you have and the assets that you have, there is zakat on.
Jazakallah khair. Then I need more clarification on this.
Sure.
Let's say you have supermarket.
Okay.
And supermarket has a lot of asset items that they're there to sell. Are you paying zakat on the items that you're planning to sell?
So in a supermarket, when the items are small items and things, there is no zakat on those items.
Okay.
These are things with turnover that's going on, right? These are not long-standing assets. But for example, for the supermarket, if you have a delivery system that is used just to deliver back and forth, utilized in the business, there's no zakat on that. But if you have invested into, let's say, gold as a reserve for your business, there would be zakat on that, right? Okay. And how much finances do you have over a year? There would be zakat on that. But things that are utilized in the business itself, there's no zakat on.
Second example, you have car showroom. Yes. And you have hundreds of cars parked there waiting for somebody to buy them. Are you paying zakat on the value of all of the cars or the profit that you made from those cars?
When it comes to cars, it's a little bit different, right? Here you're looking at things that have intrinsic value in and of themselves and a large amount.
Supermarket have intrinsic value, let's say sugar,
but those are very small commodities, right?
Okay.
We have to look back at farming and what is mentioned in hadith about camels and sheep. So in that, cars, for example, you could compare that to
with camels.
With camels, or I mean, depending on what you're looking at with sheep and goats and all that, and those are all mentioned in hadith, how much and nasab and all of that. But if you look at somebody trading beans, for example, there is no, I mean, on the trade itself, there is no zakat, right? Okay. But if you're growing beans and if you're growing things, then there is a nasab for that as well.
So coming back to the car example, are you paying zakat on the inventory of the cars or not?
You would be, but you would then look at a timeline, right? Meaning that, okay, at this time I had these many cars, here I have to pay zakat, how many cars do I have on hand? So you wouldn't pay throughout the year what you had, you would pick a point in time. For example, if you pay zakat in Ramadan, then you would say, okay, how many cars do I have in inventory in Ramadan that I could sell for cash at the moment?
So it has to be a particular month?
Yes.
But not like you had 200 cars in July, in Ramadan you have 100 cars.
Zakat isn't an income tax. Okay. It's not on income. It really has to do with not hoarding wealth. Right? So the concept in the West is that how much ever money you make, the government wants a part of it. That's not an Islamic concept. In Islam, what we don't want is people hoarding wealth and not spreading it with the needy, or not benefiting the environment that you live in, the communities that you live in, by circulating the wealth. So if somebody sits on piles of gold, then what are they doing? They're not helping the economy. They're not circulating the wealth. They're hoarding the wealth, and the needy people are in need. But if somebody has tons of gold, but throughout the year they give away, or they trade and they do business with it and they move it as it's in function, right? So then we say, okay, you may have earned a lot of money, but you had a lot of expenses. You, for example, are taking care of your whole tribe. You're taking care of a lot of the poor and the needy. Then we don't put zakat on that. Right? So for example, I pay my zakat in Ramadan. That's just a month I chose. It doesn't have to be. You can do Muharram, the first of the Islamic year. You can do any other time. Then at that time, I evaluate my assets. Now, for example, anything that you have for personal use, there's no zakat on. Right? So even the government loves to tax you on everything, but Islam is just. So if you have 4 cars because you have 4 wives, Allahumma barik, for example, just an example, not saying he does, right? There's no zakat on any of them, right? Because they have to take the kids to school, back, whatever it is, right? But I mean, if you have no wife and you're sitting there with 10 cars, that's different, right?
You mentioned gold. A lot of DC families, let's say, we have a lot of gold in our families. Is there zakat on gold that female folks are wearing?
This is an issue of great ikhtilaf amongst the scholars of Islam. And I've spent a lot of time researching this issue. I'm not going to have the time to go into the depth of the detail.
The shortest answer, let's say your own research.
I will give the shortest answer I can. And I know many people watching are going to be shocked, surprised, and upset. It's okay. Take a deep breath. The majority of the scholars of Islam say there is no zakat on women's personal gold. Right? Meaning a man doesn't have personal gold. So if you have gold, that's an investment. And there is zakat on it.
But gold is a currency in Islamic.
I'm getting to it, right? So, for example, a man that has a gold brick, or a woman that has a gold brick, that's an investment. Right? That there is no doubt zakat on.
You're referring to variable gold.
No, I'm talking about a brick.
No, you're referring to not having zakat.
But now let's go to hilliya, which is the variable or the jewelry that is for beautification. Let's say go to a poor village in Afghanistan. There is a girl and her parents, because she's getting married, they get some gold made for her. And this is just for her when she wears it to weddings or to family gatherings or for her husband. But if it reaches nisab, is there zakat on it? The majority of the ulama of Islam say no. The Hanafi madhab says yes. Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah says yes, that even on a woman's personal gold there is zakat. But Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad, they said no. Now many of our contemporary scholars like Sheikh Ibn Baz and others said yes, there is. And one of the reasons is because a lot of people have started to kind of hide behind that.
That was my next question.
Right, people, which again, you can't hide from Allah, right? You can't trick Allah. There is no loopholes in Islam, right? So what they do is they make very heavy investment style gold, and they'll say that if something goes wrong, we'll sell this, So they're taking it like an investment, but they're trying to
they have put a lot of money into gold.
Right.
Up to 50K, people are wearing it to the weddings.
$1 million, I've seen it. So in those situations, there would be zakat on it, right? Because in reality, that's an investment. And they think of it as an investment, right? If something goes wrong, I'm going to sell this. This is my investment. And a lot of them use gold coins, right? It's just necklaces of gold coins, which is very much an investment thing. But if the gold is really just for that woman's own beautification, then the opinion I take is there's no zakat on it.
But is there a limitation to what they can?
Yes and no, right? I think a little bit of taqwa is needed here, right? Meaning that we can't say this much or that much because there's no hadith that mentions about women's beautification having a nisab. Nisab for gold, for zakat is something different, right? So if somebody has $1 million worth of necklaces, I think they know and we know that this is not just personal use. This is really in a way either for show or investment, and then there is zakat on that for sure, right? But If somebody has some gold, like a woman that's really just doing it for her own beautification, then because it's for isti'mal, it's for use, there's no zakat on it. And there are hadith that go both ways, right? There are hadith where Rasulullah saw a woman with gold, in one of the hadith also about silver bracelets, and he said, did you pay zakat on it? Otherwise this will be from the fire on the day of judgment. But ulama like Ibn Qudama and others have explained that first, there's no nisab mentioned here, that rather this was kanz. This was a time when all gold had to be given zakat on. There was no nisab, all of that.
Because gold is considered currency, right?
In Islam, we do have a currency of gold. We have dinar, we have dirham, but those are currencies. Those are actual coins and things, right? They're not variable. And
gold, yeah.
again, that is what is used for investment or trading. Usually, a woman who has gold purely and sincerely for her own use doesn't use it as a currency. No woman is like, hey, give me money to go shop, and if you don't give it, I'm going to put my earring, right?
So your opinion is, no matter the amount, but there should be ikhlas in this matter.
Well, exactly.
If it's used only for personal use, for fashionable reasons, then there's no zakat.
No zakat on it.
Anything investment, they have to pay zakat on it.
But again, when we say there's no limit, I think people do need to use that taqwa to be, not to try to trick
how
the
to define
system.
what's a red line here in the taqwa?
Right, exactly. I mean, there isn't, because in Islam we have a thing called urf, right? Meaning that if you are in an area, let's say you're in a remote area of Nigeria, and it's the tradition for women to have maybe bangles and a necklace, then that's their beautification. But if in that area she has, a gold set that goes from her neck down to her navel, then obviously they realize that's not according to the urf of the place, and you're trying to trick the system.
Sheikh, what about Birkins and other bags? There are bags. Birkin is a quite expensive.
I don't know what a Birkin is, like a Louis Vuitton, or
yes.
All right. Sorry, I'm not up on.
Yes. So basically, this bag is basically investment and also fashionable wear. People can wear it. They can have it actually, which costs like $40,000, $30,000. We have watches.
Yeah, Rolexes and all that. Good question. So before we move on from gold, I will make one last point. I personally pay zakat on my wife's gold.
But then why you are giving fatwa for other people not to?
Great question.
Yeah.
Because the fatwa is based on evidences.
Okay.
The amal is based on taqwa.
Okay.
Fatwa, taqwa. Right? So even though after years of research and looking at Muwaffaquddin ibn Qudama and Nabawi in al-Majmu'ah and looking at research from different madahib and reading the research of different scholars, from the classic scholars onwards, feel the evidence is stronger that women's actual personal use gold there is no zakat on, and this is the Jamhur al-Ulama, and the evidences the others bring in can be easily refuted, but out of my own taqwa and to be out from the khilaf, I pay it anyway. Meaning that if I pay it, I'm safe. If it wasn't obligatory, it will be a sadaqah for me, right? And if it was obligatory, then I'm safe. But I am always careful that when I present an opinion, it is what I see as the strongest with evidence from the scholars of Islam.
Coming back to
the expensive merchandise. There is no zakat on them because we don't see this for personal use. Again, if you have it as a business, then you'd have to speak to scholars about how long the inventory is on hand and so on. But for personal use, if you buy yourself a Rolex, for example, and even though you could sell it, but you're not buying it as an investment, you're buying it because you like the way it looks. We have no evidence to say there's zakat on it.
Same goes to like expensive stones.
Diamonds, pearls, there's no zakat on them. Right? Because in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had lu'lu, they had pearls, they were very expensive, they had diamonds, they had different types of valuable gems, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not order people to pay zakat on it, only on gold and silver. And again, going back to your point earlier, because gold and silver were used as pure currency. Now, women's jewelry was not used for currency. Right?
Was there a difference even at that time, women jewelry?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Currency.
There definitely was.
The currency was in coins.
Yes, there was gold dinar, and there were different types of dinar. There were Persian dinars, there were Roman dinars, and so on. And then later Islamic dinars. and there were dirham, silver dirham, Persian silver and Roman silver, and then later on Islamic silver. And one of the things that some of the Zayd ibn Thabit and Sahaba, they used to deal in this currency exchange. This was their profession, right? So nothing wrong with trading in currency, like when you go to a sarraf and change your money. Nothing wrong even if you make a profit on that. It's not considered riba when it's just made on money by itself. And understanding that the gold and silver that really is zakat is what is, going back to the principle, hoarding from the community. Meaning, if you're quite wealthy and you've put $1 million in gold, and you say, oh, this is my wife's, but it's a bunch of bricks, you know it's not. Fear Allah, Allah will hold you accountable. But if Allah has blessed you with some money and you love your wife and you buy her some gold,
which she is wearing
which she wears on a daily basis or a weekly basis, or when her family visits or whatever, purely for purification, it's not meant as an investment, then there is no zakat. Same way, when you buy something, even if you buy a Lamborghini for yourself, there's no zakat on it. But if you have a Lamborghini dealership, this is now assets, there would be zakat on it.
There will be zakat on the Lamborghini.
Yeah, because it's not for personal use. The basic principle we can understand from many ahadith and ayat.
Going back to the business, Sheikh, let's say somebody on 1 month before Ramadan, he did his accounting and he made a profit of $100,000.
Okay.
And there's a 2.5% zakat on that, on business income. Now, going down the line, 15 days later, he made a loss of this 100K and he doesn't have any money. So is there zakat on that person or not? Or maybe even 10 days later.
So really the way zakat should work is you, for example, let's say the 27th of Ramadan is when you pay your Ramadan zakat, for example, right? And again, you can pick any of the lunar days, months, and so on. You look at yourself on that day and a year ago. And then you say, how much wealth have I sat on?
Okay.
And you pay zakat on that.
On the particular day.
On that day, right? Okay. But if you just made that money, then there's no zakat on it.
Because some people pay the zakat in advance on a monthly basis.
You could. It is permissible.
And let's say then, they made lost and the zakat wasn't due on them. Can they transfer the amount they've already paid to next year? Because this year,
no, you can't undo zakat, right?
No, because it says he wasn't supposed to pay zakat.
I get it.
But he paid it in advance.
If you paid it, you paid it, right? Okay. Because you did it with the niyyah of the zakat for that year. But again, it is possible, right, that you calculated it and you went higher. Here, you just pay it. And if you went lower, then you pay that. You pay up, right? But if you already paid it, you cannot get credits for next year.
All right, another question on investments. Let's say you have crypto. Crypto is a currency, currency, which zakat is due on. What about stock? And
so stocks, crypto, if you have dividends that are not riba based, because riba is haram, but if you do, if you have any other kind of investment, they're all considered as financial products, right?
So you pay zakat on it.
You pay zakat on it.
I've heard Ibrahim from Islamic Finance Guru. He said there's no zakat. And there's a book, Introduction to Islamic Finance, a short book. I haven't read it entirely.
No zakat on
investment. So is there a grey area there?
How I don't know what they mean by that. For example,
I haven't read the argument, so that's why I can't.
There is no zakat on business investments. For example, if you buy a house to rent out as a rental unit, there's no zakat on that, right? On the house, because that is your active business investment. But if you buy and sell houses, right,
on the house.
There would be zakat if you had certain amount of properties and certain amount of times and so on. So there's a difference between a rental unit, because that's not your currency, is not the house, it's the rentals, right? And there's a difference between if you're doing housing projects, right? So in that way, if you buy crypto, in the end, it's the same as money today, right?
Yes.
So there would be zakat on it, even if you did it as an investment, because there is zakat on gold for investment, right? If they were to say there's no zakat on investment, I would have to look at what do they mean by that. Because, for example, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the gold and silver and camels and sheep that there was zakat on were all investment based.
But what about you invested in a startup? You
Again,
invest $1 million in a startup.
If you invest $1 million on a startup, what assets do you have?
Literally nothing.
And then there is no zakat on that because
you have invested.
Right.
Same goes to stock, because stock can go up and down.
Stock can go up and down, but there is a difference between investing in a startup and a stock. A startup, let's say you're starting up Read, right? And I invest $1 million because it's a great future product, inshallah. W plug, right? I can't sell that stock. There is no stock right now. It's an investment, right? So I don't have that as a commodity on hand. Now, if you take off and I make $10 million, inshallah, then I can pay zakat on that wealth. But the way stocks are today, you buy stocks and you sell stocks. So it's more of a...
Most people hold them for long term, 10 years, 15 years.
I mean, they're day traders, right? There are people
but
that...
We have both, right? We have day traders and we have people who hold in stock.
But when they're holding stock for 20 years, it's an investment. It's not... It's something they could sell. Like it still has a cash value. So whenever you pay your zakat, you look at your stocks, they're worth that day, and you pay zakat on that if you've had it more than a year.
If you had more than a year.
Yeah, if you've had the stock less than a year, there's no zakat on it.
And then they have to be above the nisab.
Of course, but with your wealth, not just the stock by itself.
With your wealth.
Yeah, because this is all considered cash.
So personally, what I did, I'm managing a small portfolio of my friends. So I told them to give me records if you're going above the nisab. Then as an investment, let's say small
in stocks,
whatever, in stocks, and we will pay you a zakat. Can I do that? It's my responsibility as a, let's say, as a firm, as an investment firm, or is it responsibility of the investor?
So as, are you talking about as a startup?
As a startup, let's say.
There's no zakat on it.
So no, let's say I'm managing people's funds.
Okay.
Like Wahid Invest could be a good example.
I don't know how their setup is for Wahid, so I don't want to comment on them.
Example.
But an example.
Let's say 10 people have come together and they're giving their money. I've invested in a stock. Am I responsible to manage the zakat part?
They
or
are.
They are the one responsible.
Okay. Yeah. But you can take that responsibility. You can say, look, I can take care of the zakat for you, but the responsibility is theirs because the wealth is theirs.
Jazakallah khair. I think, have we left anything in the zakat category?
Well, there's whole abwab.
Of course, yeah.
You can go check out. We have series on lessons and stuff.
On the, this matters of entrepreneurship and finance, especially now the finance is entirely changing.
Yeah.
It becoming mostly, everything online.
Yeah.
And people are generally printing money out of thin air. Yeah, creating different values.
Yeah, it's a strange world we live in. We get this question all the time, whether crypto is halal or haram and things. But to be honest, crypto to me is not very different from regular currencies.
Same.
Because regular currencies have no value either. See, Islam is such a beautiful method of living and way of life that we believe a currency should have inherent value of itself. So when we would have the gold dinar or the dirham, Islamic gold dinar dirham, it would be a certain amount of gold, certain amount of silver. And if the world and things go up and down, you could utilize that in other things. Like for example, in computers and medical equipment, we use gold. Yeah. So gold has a value in and of itself. There's a need for it, right?
Interestingly, Sheikh, crypto, not meme coins, like genuine coin based on technology, let's say Solana, right? Or Ethereum, they have more intrinsic value than the fiat currency we're using today because they are solving a particular problem, right? If, let's say, the blockchain technology, nobody's using crypto as a currency, is still a technology, people can solve many other problems.
That is true, but I don't know, can you buy... I mean, when you're buying
it's one of the methods
crypto,
people have assigned, like buying and selling. But let's say you can have a good property management system.
Yeah, you could using blockchain computing. Yes. You're not really buying the technology, right? You're buying this made-up idea. But again, like I said, to me, that is not very different from
but is it a halal
bank account. Look, to be honest, I'm very careful on this issue because halal haram is very serious.
That's true.
And I still don't fully understand how it works. And I've sat down with experts because everybody I speak to gives me a different story. Okay. Who invented it? Right? Till today we don't really know, right?
We don't need to know.
I think we do, because I'm sure you've programmed before, right? And my bachelor's in computer science, right? So I used to program. Anytime you program something, as the designer and programmer, you're going to put backdoors into it, right? So whoever, I understand that it's a distributed blockchain, but again, it was initiated by a certain program, right? So protocols, I mean, even lines of code. I mean, in the end, we're looking at computers, all lines of code, right? So if I started this, what if I put a backdoor into it, right?
Well, we can see if somebody put a backdoor into it.
How would you see? I mean,
it's open source.
It is open source, but when you don't know the original code, we're not going line by line reviewing these codes.
People have gone through line by anyway. There's a different discussion.
Right? So that is a question, right? Who would be able to review and regulate any of that, right? For example, right now, Bitcoin or Coinbase or Robinhood has a wallet, right? If you have a wallet, how do they interact with that blockchain computing, and why couldn't I, right? So they have an access that I don't have, and who regulates that? I don't know.
It's a different discussion.
Yeah,
and inshallah we can.
It's interesting though. Yeah.
Interesting. Now I want to go to the payment of zakat. There's one usul principle that people should have possession of what you're giving them. But my question is, now what's happening with the zakat? People are distributing the zakat money as very small amount in order to, let's say, give their zakat to too many people, right? Instead of one person. What is the best practice? To give your money to someone so he has sustainability until the next year, or give the same amount to hundreds of families and they'll be small and none of them will be really some stash use it for themselves?
Best practice here depends on the situation, right? Meaning, if I'm living in Syria, for example, and they just had a new regime come in, and there are many people that are starving, right? Or if I'm living in Gaza and there are children that are starving, my first priority is give them food because they need to eat, right? Now, if I'm living in a more developed and stable country where people do have jobs, but they're struggling, they still have, because there's a difference between miskeen and faqir, right? So one being that somebody who absolutely has nothing, and one being somebody who does have wealth, he may have an income, but it's not enough for the year's expenses, right? So in those situations where you have some stability, then my advice would be that, look, why not teach a man to fish, not just give him a fish, right? You take zakat money, you give them enough that they're able to start up a business, start up some, it doesn't have to be a major business like your endeavors, barakallah, but for example, I know there was a lot of organizations that were giving single mothers and divorced women or orphaned women or widowed women from wars sewing machines from zakat money, and what they would do is they would start sewing clothes and earn income. Well, that's much better than just giving them food, right? But at the same time, if kids are starving in Gaza and I give them a sewing machine, they're not going to eat the sewing machine, right? So you do have to evaluate the situation.
This principle of they should have, let's say the miskeen and faqir should have the possession of what you're giving them.
Well, depends how much you give them, right? Like if I give,
the principle has to be applied. They can possess.
Of course,
it, right?
They can possess it. But if you only have enough to give food, then they possess the food, right?
Yes, but can you give zakat in the form of service?
Well, give me an example, right?
Okay, a good example. Let's say you set up a university with your zakat money,
all right,
and then you hire a teacher, all with zakat money. You pay the rent, and the service goes back to the beneficiary.
Well, you could set up you could set up
but they're not directly having the possession of the money, but indirectly.
Right. So you could set up something that would directly deal with the issue that made them mustahiq of zakat to begin with. Okay. What does that mean? A university doesn't provide anything education, but anything that would make them mustahiq of zakat. Well, not being educated doesn't make, the 8 categories that we usually look at, or 10, depending how you divide it up, that are in the Quran itself, right?
They can get jobs and...
That is true, but when a rich person get education, or a person who has at least enough not to be mustahiq
eligible in order to be able to...
I would say that really is more something that you would use from sadaqah, sadaqah jariyah, inshallah. It's a great thing. But for example, if you set up a well to get water to people that don't have water, they don't have the financial ability to get clean water. Here, even though they don't possess it, but you could use zakat money for it.
For water well.
For water wells,
For
right?
masjid?
Well, not the masjid, but a water well, right? Masajid cannot be built with zakat money. So with water wells, again, even though technically they don't own it, but it is something that them not having water is something that they would die from, and if not having the financial ability to have one of the necessities of life, here I see that there is a genuine need for zakat. Another thing is, for example, if you set up a sewing and a factory for people that are under the nisab, so that they would own a part of that factory, meaning it's not your factory, it would be waqf, and you would give each one, certain amount of stocks, you could say, or whatever, where they could now earn an income. Those things, we could discuss.
Okay.
But generally, higher education or even basic education are not used. We don't use zakat money for that, right? Now, of course, zakatul mal is one thing, but as every Muslim, we want to get sadaqah, we want to get sadaqah jariyah, we want to invest in things that will benefit us in the akhirah, not just the minimum. So,
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, I have two more questions. One is about Forex, trading commodities. Can you buy in derivative value of something and then sell it back?
see, commodities trading is a different thing. For example, if you want to invest in, meat or some kind of actual commodity, but Forex and a lot of these tradings, we look at futures trading, really you're kind of betting on whether it goes up or down, and it could go down and you'll make money off it, or it could go up and you'll lose money from it. So this doesn't seem halal to me. This seems to be pretty much, like investing is different. Right?
This usul, for example, I'm buying gold.
Okay.
But technically, I'm not buying gold. I'm buying the value of gold.
Sure.
Right? Is it allowed in Islam?
Kind of, right? Because you have to caveat that by saying, if that gold goes down, do you make money?
No.
Right? So in reality...
But then you don't possess it based on the hadith.
Well, you do possess the gold, right?
No, you don't. Because on Forex, you're buying the price, derivative value of gold, but not the actual gold.
So if you buy gold today, right? I'm saying about actual gold, right?
No, I'm saying I'm talking about in Forex context.
Okay.
Because they don't really buy actual gold. They
Could
buy.
you cash that out as gold?
No.
Really? No. That's
You're just buying the
problematic then.
value of it.
That's problematic then.
Okay.
Yeah. But futures trading and a lot of what I see when they say, okay, from what I understand, again, I'm not a financial expert, but I did have some financial experts how to explain it. They said, okay, you bet on the future, even if it's the future of going down. So that value goes down, you make money, right? Which is kind of a strange, I don't know, this is what they explained it to me, and we could probably get somebody who knows the system better, explain how it works. But Forex trading could say, okay, I'm gonna invest in the future of gold going down.
Okay.
And if it goes down,
It's sort of gambling then.
then it is gambling, right?
Because the projection in the future.
Right, and again, when you invest, things could go down,
Yeah, of course.
but that's not what you're betting on, right? You're expecting that it'll go up, and then whatever happens, qadar Allah, right? But kind of forecasting and a gambling methodology of, even if it's with research, and betting on it going down and you making money is not investing, really.
Sheikh, what about leverage? Let's say in certain platforms, if you give them $1,000, they will give you $20,000, and within their own ecosystem, and then you can invest that and make a profit out of the $20,000.
Can you sell it then?
Technically, yes, but
that seems strange. How can they guarantee to make you 200 times the profit?
It's they're giving you, let's say, it's not technically loan, right? It's not technically loan. They give you the amount,
okay,
and you can use that amount to invest,
but only in their ecosystem.
Yes, you have to go through their own broker system.
Yes, no. See, this is like a pyramid scheme then, right? Because, for example, if you have $100,000 US, right, and you give it to me, and I give you $1 million Uthman currency, right? But what am I basing that on? Like tomorrow, if you want $1 million US,
when you're trading through my system, and I'm charging a commission for that.
Your commission I have no issue with because that's a separate issue. How can you give me 200% profit? Where are you making
It's not profit. It's, let's say you when you deposit, let's say for example a bank, you deposit with me $20,000.
All right.
You will have in your account $6,000 to do a trade with it.
So what happened to the 14,000?
It's still there.
Okay.
Is it allowed Islamically?
No, because this is very different than what you said earlier, right? If you say invest 1,000 and we'll give you 20,000, where did that 19,000 come from?
It comes from their account. Their
Why are they
leverage?
And then so let's say I give you $1,000 and you give me 20,000, so you're giving me 200% more.
Then you have to go through my system in order to.
Can I just be like, all right, never mind, I just want the 20 grand? Well, then you're basically holding my money hostage, right?
Derivative value is not allowed in Islam.
It's not because
hyper, thin air value.
But not just that,
intrinsic.
this really sounds like a pyramid scheme because now I'm stuck in your system, which the value is based on your system. Like there was a financial guy, Madoff, I think his name was, right?
Yeah.
So what he did basically is that Bernie Madoff. It was interesting. That's an interesting name. I wonder what. Anyway, so if you invested with him, he guaranteed you that you will make a certain amount of money. And he had this whole idea of how he takes money and he puts in other stocks in this stock, and it worked. I mean, every time anybody, major billionaires put their money with him, he was able to get them profits. What turned out is that he wasn't making that kind of money.
It
was a Ponzi scheme and a very elaborate one, and that lasted, I forgot, like 50 years or something, right?
Recently, a Muslim was also exposed.
Na'udhu billah.
Muslim money master or something. He was doing exactly the same thing, getting investment, promising you 10%, investment giving you 10% and all that.
Exactly. So what he was doing is he'd get your money, and then when he'd get Brother Farid's money, then he would take that money and give you profit, but then he'd spend your money on his own luxurious lifestyle. And in the end, everybody lost money off of him.
Unfortunately, £6 million.
Yeah,
£6 million is gone.
Is that the Muslim one you're talking about?
The Muslim one I'm talking about.
I think Madoff's was in the billions.
It was a billion.
Yeah. I mean, he went to jail for it, but again, they let him keep 200 million. Yeah. That's interesting.
That's why Islam believes in a realistic economy.
Of course. And again, we do believe in investment. We believe, if there's a startup, invest in it. And if the startup does well, you get your money. Alhamdulillah, Allah bless it for you. Like, that's great. We're in a sense, you would say, more of a capitalistic system than we are a communist system, in the sense that we do believe in free market and we don't believe in taxation and all of that. But we also don't believe in that capitalism of big fish eat little fish, where big companies can. Right now, your bank, it's just a Ponzi scheme, to be honest, right? Because if you think about it, not only is money today not backed by anything with inherent value, not gold, not silver, nothing. They don't even have the paper on hand.
To be honest, banking is another mess that people should talk about it.
Yeah.
The way they operate and everything.
It's a mafia, right? Yes. I mean, right now, the money you have in your account, if you and me and everybody in this town went to the bank and forget about gold or so, just said, I want the cash. They say they have less than 10% they have on hand.
It's actually $62 trillion are circulating, but in reality it's only 20 trillion being printed.
Yeah.
Even if you look at it that way.
Right.
Sheikh, just to clarify this point as well, some people do consider when they pay tax, they feel like the zakat can be part of the tax as well.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Tax, there is no such thing as taxes in Islam.
But it could be heavy on them, paying taxes.
I understand. I mean, look, Zakat has rules from the Quran itself, in Sahih Hadith, who can get it. Yeah. Taxes are used for things like roads, militaries. I mean, I'm in America, you were in the UK. A lot of our taxes go to bombs being dropped on innocent countries. Well, how does your zakat go toward bombs, right? Like that's not mustahiq of zakat, And
Donald Trump is almost saying.
Yeah, right. And I mean, a lot of taxes go to government subsidies to major companies. Like when the banks were failing in America, a lot of tax money went to bankers, billionaires, to bail out the banks. Well, that's not zakat, can't be used for that. So you cannot consider tax as zakat. Now, to utilize the best legal legal, ways possible to minimize your taxes is good. Like Donald Trump said in a debate with Hillary Clinton, he said, I don't pay tax, and if you do, you're an idiot. Like you don't know how to avoid tax, but legally, I find ways, right? So
major companies don't pay tax.
of course. Even if you look at Amazon, if you look at Elon Musk, if you look at a lot of these guys, they avoid taxes because they know the system. So you should learn the system and legally, without breaking the law, I mean, pay as little as needed, right? But zakat is an ibadah. It's a worship. Zakat can't go towards building a masjid even. Why? Because there's a different system that's supposed to be for masajid, right? Zakat can go to the poor and the needy, somebody who's absolutely in need, or even if somebody has enough wealth but they cannot maintain their yearly expenses based on their income coming in, or people that are in debt, or people, and I mean real debt, or people that are travelers that are lost, people that are doing something fi sabilillah, whether it's defending the Muslim land or da'wah as well, as Sheikh bin Jibreen and the Lajna, they have clarified. But again, if I wanna build a masjid for sadaqah jariyah, I cannot use zakat money, even though it's a good thing. If I wanna build a government hospital just for the citizens of that country, that's a great thing, but that's not zakat, right?
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Akramakallah. Good to see you. Barakallah.